Francisco seems not to show up to the series until it's too late, but it hasn't been too late as this team has faced elimination 6 games this postseason and has gone 6-0 in those games. I think Detroit is just a little bit better. Matt Cain won't be available until about Game 3 in Detroit. You know, for Detroit, you have Verlander, Fister, and Scherzer, and Anibal Sanchez. So certainly it's going to be hard for the Giants to hit off that pitching staff. And I know the Giants are red hot right now, but so are the Tigers. So I think I'm going to pick the Detroit Tigers in 6 games. I just think that Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, and the Detroit offense, accompanied with the great pitching staff that Detroit has, will be just a little bit too much for San Francisco to win their second World Series championship in the last 3 years.
All right, thanks, Chris, so much for being on my show. And he is the host of Chris's Corner, as well as I heard your high school football game as well.
Yeah, we started a program at St. John Bosco High School in Bell Fountain, California, and they're ranked 20th in the nation right now. They're 8-0 football field. So certainly every Friday night around 7 o'clock this Friday night against the very talented program of Servite down here. It'll be Servite St. John Bosco at 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So check it out. I'll be doing the broadcast along with Chris Marr. He's a St. John Bosco alumni. He played some football and baseball there as well. So please check us out this Friday at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific as Servite meets up with unbeaten, nationally ranked St. John Bosco High School. Thanks a lot, Robert.
No problem, Chris. And we'll take a break here, but after the break, I do have Nick Rice talking about NFC West, who's going to win it, and who's the most competitive in this NFC West. We'll be back right after this commercial break.
I just end up falling, ball for a few, then end up walking. Catch me in the ball with a Cinderella waltzing, and I do it till it's no longer exclusive. Might go once, might go twice, but never 3 times like an auction to it. See, I walk into it, I do my thing, then tell the owner that it's cool to let y'all into it. Catch me, I'm ballin', catch me, I'm ballin', catch me like Spalding, catch me like Spalding. If he indeed DMC, vitamin like GNC. Lupe, yeah, catch me, I'm ballin', catch me, I'm ballin', catch me like Spalding, catch me like Spalding. ABB to ALC, man, we stay on a JOB. Yeah, put me on EV to the TOP, with a little bit of time on CAP. But this right here, dog, there is no fee to get me down. If I don't really feel your speed, see, I never trust them. Catch me, I'm ballin', tailor-made custom, must be I'm allin'. Still want it like worst come to worst, to the point where I never call myself OG. Yeah, my end games never go OT. And if so, time's up like OC. And if not, then wasn't my calling. Catch me like Spalding, catch me like Spalding. Rest in peace to my Cali Gold Rush is here, we never stallin'. Ball goes down and still get fouled. Understand, man, that's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, catch me, I'm ballin', catch me, I'm ballin', catch me like Spalding, catch me like.
Hello and welcome back to the Deits Sports Talk, as I'm your host, Robert Dieters, and we're going to go on to some NFC West. As the first team we're talking about is the 49ers. I do have Nick Rice on the line. Hello, Nick Rice. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, Nick. And let's go on about this NFC West, as this has been one of the most competitive divisions, as this is the most surprising division that's been the most expecting actually competitive. Do you think the Niners have the upper chance?
Well, the Niners are still the class of the NFC West. I think it's pretty obvious after another NFC West win over the Seattle Seahawks this time. Just defensively and offensively, this team's in a different class than the rest of the NFC West. This is competitive, and perhaps we'll see a wild card team out of this division, but the Niners are still the class of it. Interestingly enough, take the defenses, receiving core, and running back away, I think the Niners are better in those categories as well. I would take Alex Smith over any of the other quarterbacks in that division. Now, we haven't seen much of Russell Wilson, but from the other quarterbacks that we've seen, Sam Bradford and obviously Kevin Kolb, I'm going with Alex Smith, who's been there and done that with the Niners.
Yeah, and Alex Smith has had a pretty good season, except against the New York Giants, as he threw 3 picks in that game. But they bounced back and they beat the Seahawks. Now you look at the Niners as a team that loves running the ball, as they're second overall with 176.6 rushing yards. Do you think this, and their passing yards hasn't been all that much, has been only 199.9. Do you think the passing yards is a big difference, or do you think their running game is more important?
Well, we saw from that game against the Giants that Alex Smith is limited, and when the team has to come back through the passing game, the Niners are not the same team. Now, I do think that the Niners will be able to rebound, given a second opportunity against the Giants, perhaps in the playoffs. I mean, I think New York is going to the postseason; they're just too talented. So I feel like if the Niners do meet the Giants again, or any good defense, I feel like they'll fix up their running game first and not have to rely so much on the pass. I'm not concerned about Alex Smith, though. He's still a tremendous quarterback, just had a very awful game, and the Niners don't need to pass the ball every game. That's why they're 200 yards per game, which is towards the bottom of the league. They don't have to pass it, every single down. They'll give Smith his 15 to 20 throws and hand it off the rest of the game.
Yeah, and his quarterback rating this year is 67.1. And his completion percentage is 66.8. That tells you he has pretty good completions. He can also run the ball as well. This guy that can run the ball and get a touchdown, as you kind of saw against the Saints last year.
Yeah, this is a multi-purpose quarterback, as you mentioned, Robert. And I would take this quarterback over the rest of the division. No worries about the Niners. They'll put up 12, 13 wins. They'll be back in the playoffs.
And let's move on to these 4-3 teams, as Arizona and Seattle becoming a really surprising team this year. Do you think if you had to say Seattle versus Arizona, who would you pick?
I would pick Seattle over Arizona just because no matter where they play, I know, of course, the Seahawks are better at home, but even on the road, I would take this quarterback and also that tremendous defense. Not a lot of people give the Seattle Seahawks credit defensively, and when Pete Carroll came into Seattle, he fixed that defense, and this side of the football for Seattle has turned into a force. And if it weren't for a terrible quarterback and lack of a receiving core, Seattle could be a really tough competitor in the NFC. Now, offensively, very limited towards the bottom of the league. Defensively, not many people think that Seattle ranks in the top 3 this year defense. This is a very strong defense. I would take them over the Cardinals, who have a very pedestrian offensive unit.
Yeah, this Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson has done pretty well. He's already thrown for over 1,000 yards with 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. This QB came out of nowhere in really good, in big situations. And, you look at, I think if you had to say that Russell Wilson and Alex Smith are the 2 best QBs in the NFC West.
It's not a stretch to believe that. Now, Sam Bradford and Rams fans might be able to disagree on that. And I feel like right now, maybe Bradford has a little bit more talent than Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson in his rookie year has done more than Bradford has. He's gone at home against tough competitors, and he's beat them. And right now, the Seattle Seahawks are winning. They have a winning record. They're 4-3, and they have a tough competition next week. I forget who they play, but they go on the road to face another tough competitor. I don't know if Seattle will make the playoffs, but I think they have the better quarterback outside of Alex Smith in that division.
Bradford, I would have to say, is a good QB. That is controversy between Russell Wilson and Sam Bradford. But you look at this NFC West, and it's tough. That the Cardinals just don't have a good O-line. Kevin Cobb gets beat up almost every game.
And I wouldn't place the entire blame on that. I believe Kevin Cobb has been sacked the more times than any other QB in the league. But overall, I feel like it's the lack of a running game and the lack of a dynamic number 2 at wideout, because Larry Fitzgerald, he's getting doubled all year. He hasn't had the kind of statistic that we expect out of this Pro Bowl receiver. And the other guys have not really stepped up like we expected. Andre Roberts has been the best number 2 that the Cardinals have had, and even he struggled in big-time moments. even at home, the Cardinals do not look like a dominant team, and I would be hard-pressed to see the Cardinals win more than 7 to 8 games this year. It's just because of the lack of talent on offense. That defense can't carry them every week, and we saw it the past couple weeks.
Yeah, and, they lost 14-21 to the Vikings, and the Niners lost to them too, so, I look at the Vikings as a surprising team, but I know they're on the NFC West, but this team has beat some pretty competitive teams this year for the Vikings.
Well, we've certainly been talking about the better conference, I believe, in the NFL, the NFC, and the Minnesota Vikings have really shook some heads now. We were talking about quarterbacks just a little bit earlier, and Christian Ponder is certainly fitting to more of a mold that Russell Wilson has. He's having the tough wins, and he's able to beat some pretty tough competition. Now, the Vikings were picked to be, in the top 5 as far as drafting this next year, saying that they were going to have one of the worst records in the NFL. And so far, at 4-2, I believe, the Minnesota Vikings, they haven't beaten easy teams. They've gone into people's houses and beat them down, and that is something to say. Now, obviously, this is a defensive team, and offensively, outside of Percy Harvin, not an elite player on that side of the ball. But I think if the Minnesota Vikings play some tough teams at home and play tremendous defense like they have, watch out for the Vikings. Maybe they could get a wild card spot. Too early to tell, but right now, things looking great for the Vikings, along with, of course, the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West.
Yeah, and the Vikings have been like a phenomenal, coming out of nowhere. As you said, this team was supposed to have a really bad record. They're supposed to have one of the worst, but look, they're at 5-2 right now. They're over 500, and they haven't. They've faced pretty tough competition. They've won, but you look at the Rams, and this Rams team has done pretty well. I know they're only 3-4, and they went against tough competition this week against the Packers. The Packers. They're just one game over 500. Really surprising season for the Packers.
Yeah, well, the thing is about the Rams, in that game against the Packers, now Green Bay is at a completely different eon as far as talent than the St. Louis Rams. I think anyone in the NFL could agree on that. But in this game was even more decided than the scoreboard said. It was, somewhat 20-6 throughout most of the fourth quarter there, and the Rams couldn't get their hometown crowd to win. But I feel like St. Louis, as long as they play some pretty easy competition, now I don't see their exact schedule, but from what they've played so far, they can win some tough games. And St. Louis, if they don't make the playoffs, with Sam Bradford under center, maybe late in the year, they can bump some teams out of the playoffs. Now, I don't know how likely Seattle is to make the postseason, but they play them later on in the year. They still have 2 more tough head-to-heads against them. As long as Seattle gets things, St. Louis gets things going offensively, watch out for St. Louis to perhaps end some playoff chances, as they're still a good team. Just right now, they're in a little bit of rebuilding mode, as they don't have the receiving core yet to make it deep in the postseason.
Yeah, and they have tough competition next week against the Patriots. How is that going to work out with them? They've had a tough schedule. They did lose a close one to Miami. They beat Arizona, and let's see, who else did they beat here? They lost to Detroit. They beat the Redskins. They lost to Chicago, and they beat Seattle. So they've won some pretty good games.
St. Louis is one of those teams. Now, next week I see another L on the schedule. New England, even though the game was close against the Jets, the New England Patriots are just on a roll on a different level. But the interesting thing over in St. Louis is they have some very good promise in the next 5 to 6 years. Now, not very many people, I believe, are extremely happy about the way that Sam Bradford has played. He's in his 4th year. We still see the same mistakes he made in his rookie year when he almost made it to the playoffs. As for Sam Bradford, he hasn't exactly had the offensive targets. It's a similar situation with Alex Smith, as he's had flux all the time. But I feel like Jeff Fisher, his first year in that team, he's changing things around. Now, not very many people obviously are giving Jeff Fisher and the squad much of a chance this year. But Fisher, he's the stability as far as coaching goes, and he was able to resurrect that Tennessee team. Not very many people know that the Titans at one point were 13